I was stripping a coolant line with a butter knife when the universe folded the wrong way and spat us into someone else's front yard. The deck lurched, shelving toppled, and a crate of pump bearings punched me in the ribs. I tasted copper and grit. The engine room lights went dim for a breath, then flared hard enough to etch shadows into my skull. On the overhead, the jump indicator blinked green like it had done us a favor. "Report," Captain Pike growled over intercom, voice steady as a bar of iron. I jammed the knife into the quivering hose, clamped it with a welding clip, and thumbed the mic. "Drive holds. We jumped. Somewhere." "Somewhere," he said. "That's a bad map, Grant." The radar chorus started screaming. Even through bulkheads, I could feel the hum change, the way a room feels when a big machine wakes up nearby. I wiped coolant from my hands and dogged the hatch. The corridor to the bridge smelled like hot plastic and coffee gone wrong. On the bridge, our forward screen was filled with traffic lanes like glowing veins. Ships everywhere. Fat, gilded liners shaped like carved shells. Needles of gunmetal. A ring station so large its inner cities were visible as a necklace of daylight. It was all too polished, too arranged. Big power never has to hide. A voice hit our comms with that cold, official tone I've hated since the day a dockmaster in Santiago tried to fine me for breathing. "Unregistered vessel, identify. You have entered crown space without writ. Engines cold, shields low. Present yourself." Captain Pike didn't blink. He was 50 and change, all scar lines and stubborn jaw, a man who kept talking after punches landed. He looked like a hungover mountain. He lifted the mic. "This is the freighter Widow's Run out of Freehold. Miss Jump. We're harmless if left alone." "Freehold?" the voice said, like the word was a stain. "Unknown colony. Genetic index required. Neil protocols will be transmitted. Failure to comply invites correction." The word Neil made something in me go still, then hot. I glanced at the others. Nadia at nav rolling a stress coin across her knuckles. Bishop on sensors, chewing a strand of wire like a toothpick. The captain's mouth twitched. That little tells everything twitch. "Neil protocols," Bishop muttered. "What are we, pets?" "Quiet," Pike said, calm again. He clicked the external. "Crown space, copy our distress jump signature. We request a corridor to charted empty. We don't recognize your posture requests." There was a pause. On the screen, one of the needle ships peeled from a lane and drifted toward us with the lazy confidence of a cat that owns the house. It was painted bone white with gold filigree that belonged on a ceremonial dagger. Someone, somewhere, had decided intimidation should be pretty. "Unregistered vessel," the voice came back, harder now. "Your language is crude. Dock at the tribunal spindle, gate 12, boarding inspection, surrender blades, tools, reactive matter, intoxicants, and pride. You will kneel. You will be indexed. You will be assessed for debt and duty." "Pride?" Nadia whispered, like she was trying not to laugh. Pike killed the mic and tipped his chair back, letting the silence breathe. He looked at me. "Grant, what's our bite?" "Bite?" I said. "If you mean guns, we've got 2 coil turrets that don't track right, a launch tube with a dent that makes it spit torp sideways, and a railgun I welded from 3 mining drills and a prayer. It might work, once, then it'll break in the most interesting way possible. Shields? Rebuilt from a salvage field. They'll hold against sand and bad words." He nodded, like that was about what he expected. "So we're not fighting our way out?" "Not a chance," Bishop said. "They've got traffic like a beehive, and we're the fly." I could feel the crew starting to spool tight. Fear has a smell. It's metal and sweat and someone else's breath. You learn to read it, same as you read the play of heat on a pipe before it goes. We were in the heart of something manicured and cruel. You could tell by the symmetry. Only tyrants obsess over tidy. Pike leaned on his elbows. Listen up. We dock because we have to. But nobody kneels, nobody begs. They want our tails tucked, they can cut them off themselves. I felt a small, mean smile break loose. Not because I was brave, because he said the thing I needed someone to say. We came in slow, no sudden moves. The station filled the screen until it was only a wall of details. Bridges that fed nothing, but that fed everything. Banners that drifted in a wind that didn't exist. Maintenance drones like glass beetles crawling and polishing. Gate 12 opened like a mouth. Docking pylons reached for us, too graceful for anything honest. Docking clamps bit. The hull shuddered. The airlock reported a seal with a chirp that would have been cute in another life. Our external cam showed a reception party already waiting on the other side. Long limbs in pale armor, head plates like crowns, weapons that hummed with a sound you feel in your teeth. Behind them stood a functionary on a floating dais. He wore robes that probably cost more than our ship. The dais drifted forward. A translator chimed. Humans, disarm and assume kneel posture. Welcome in humility to the Empire of Crowns. Pike looked at me. Grant, bring the welcome kit. I knew what he meant. We'd joked for years that if we ever met aliens, we'd bring the only currency that cuts through titles, something you pour and it burns. I went to the locker and pulled the small crate we labeled pipe fittings. Inside, nested in foam, were 6 bottles of black whiskey from a distiller on Freehold who ran water through charcoal and stubbornness, plus a bag of salt crackers and a jar of pickles shaped like bullets. Classy, I know. We gathered at the hatch. Pike tugged his jacket straight like he was about to walk into court, which we kind of were. Nadia had her braid tucked under a cap. Bishop had his hands empty and open, the way you show you're not looking for trouble when you're ready to cause it. Pike hit the cycle. The inner door slid. The outer opened, and the station air rolled in. It smelled like cold stone and cleaner and something floral that didn't come from any honest flower. The armored greeters raised their weapons a fraction, then stopped when they saw the box in my hands. The robed man smiled a thin, rehearsed smile. His eyes were silver, not natural, and his teeth had the satin look of someone who pays for medicine that actually works. He spoke in a tone like a dentist explaining pain. Kneel, humans. Gifts may be offered after posture. Pike stepped forward. He didn't square up or puff his chest. He just stood like himself in a place that didn't want him to. We don't kneel, he said. We brought a bar. Something in the guard's stance twitched at that. An uncertain beat. The robed man's smile cracked, almost invisible. Customs are not suggestions, he said. And the translator gave the words a faceless edge. Your species will learn. Kneel. I cracked the whiskey, and the smell came out. Smoke, sugar, a little violence. I set 3 shot glasses on the floor of the threshold, lined up neat, then poured single fingers. I slid one toward the dais with the tip of my boot. I set the second close to the guards. I took the third myself, and didn't drink yet. Where we come from, I said, the first drink is for peace, the second is for truth, the third is for whatever happens when the first 2 don't work. The guards' weapons hummed higher, a warning. The robed man raised a hand, and they stilled. He studied the amber in the cup like it might whisper. He did not kneel. He didn't even bend. A little drone zipped forward and sucked a sample into itself, a bead of gold vanishing into a sterile belly. It retreated, lights flickering as it analyzed. While we waited, I let my eyes wander. The corridor beyond them was perfect. Perfect edges, perfect polish, perfect lighting. No scuff marks, no tape over cracked handle grips, no grease under nails. A place like that needs you to kneel because it needs to pretend it made itself. The drone beeped approval. The robed man looked annoyed that reality dared to agree with us. He made a small gesture. A token will be received. Your refusal to kneel is noted. Indexing will proceed regardless. They moved to come aboard, and that's when Bishop coughed and stepped slightly in front of me. It wasn't protective. He was blocking their line of approach to make them adjust. A stubborn, petty act. The sort that starts bar fights and revolutions. The lead guard shifted her stance, a little off balance, half a blink of recalculation. Humans are messy. We don't move like parade drills. It throws clean machines. The robed man's gaze sharpened. You enter the Empire by accident and you drag mud onto our floor, he said. You will be cleaned. I tossed back my shot and let it burn like a small private act of war. I grinned so he'd know it wasn't fear. Try soap, I said. It's cheaper than obedience. The guard stepped, and the first inspection wand tasted the air inside our hatch. It's always like this. Someone important stands far away while someone armored does the dirty work. Power never gets its hands stained, unless it's blood on holidays. Nadia leaned into Pike's shoulder and murmured something I couldn't hear. He gave her the tiny nod that meant stay cool. The wand vibrated near my crate and lit a pale, judgmental blue. The guard tilted her head, reading the feed on her visor. Organic compounds, solvents, ethanol, sodium chloride, vinegar, primitive food. Delicious primitive food, I said. Her mouth twitched, not a smile. Curiosity is a crack in every wall. I slid the crackers across. She didn't bend. She used the wand like a hook and dragged them near, then sent a drone to fetch one. A minute later, the drone's light flashed green. Nothing illegal in salt and brine. Not yet, anyway. The robed man, bored now, lifted from his dais a little brass stamp like a toy. Kneel, he said again, almost gentle, like he was giving us a last chance to be good. Captain Pike's eyes were flat, river stone gray. He didn't raise his voice. No. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then the station lights in our corridor cooled half a shade. Somewhere out in the lanes, the big ships kept sliding along their perfect curves. A drone above us rotated, lens clicking. The guards' helmets sealed with a sigh. I didn't flinch. Not because I'm a hero, but because I refuse to give a bully a clean read. The trick is simple. In a world that lives on ceremony, the man who doesn't bow rewrites the script. The robed man put away his stamp like he was holstering a gun. Then we will teach you, he said. You will kneel because gravity exists. He gestured, and someone touched a control. The floor under our boots didn't drop. The air didn't shove us. Nothing obvious changed. But I felt the tug in my knees like a hand. An invisible weight tried to pull me down, whispering that bone is weak and joints are stupid and all things fall. Bishop grunted. Nadia swore. My legs shook. I set the crate down before I dropped it and locked my jaw until my teeth ached. I don't know why I laughed. Maybe it was panic finding the only exit. Maybe it was the old anger that has kept me alive since a debt collector tried to take my father's welding torch as collateral. I bent a fraction, caught the bottle, and straightened with the meanest grin I owned. Gravity's a suggestion, I said through my breath. Where I'm from, we argue with it every day. The gravity kept pushing, an invisible hand pressing down, the kind that makes your tendons scream even when you lock your knees and pretend it's fine. Nadia's braid had fallen loose and clung to her shoulder as she fought the pull. Bishop had dropped into a crouch, not yielding, but adjusting like a boxer finding balance. The guards stood untouched, their armor thrumming with stabilizers. Of course they didn't feel it. Tyranny always builds itself a crutch, then mocks the rest of us for limping. Captain Pike's jaw didn't so much as twitch. He stood like an old statue on a battlefield, scarred, cracked, but still upright. The robed official tilted his head, watching us like specimens in a jar. His silver eyes caught the station lights and reflected nothing human back. "You resist," he said in that same infuriatingly calm tone. "All flesh resists at first, but knees always find the floor. Your bones will remember their place." I spat onto the polished deck between us. It landed wet and ugly in the perfect corridor, spreading a stain they'd probably send 10 drones to scrub clean. Guess my bones forgot the lesson. One of the guards lifted her weapon a fraction, a hum like a knife sharpening in the air. The robed man raised a hand, staying her. He wasn't done with his little demonstration. "You mistake defiance for freedom. We have folded 1,000 cultures like paper into the crown. Everyone swore they would not kneel. Everyone was wrong. You will be too." I looked at Pike, waiting for his signal, but he wasn't giving one. Not yet. He just let the silence hang, let the invisible weight grind us down until it wasn't just our muscles aching, it was our pride. That's when he moved, not fast, not flashy. He bent, slowly, deliberately, to the crate, pulled another bottle of whiskey and set it on the deck. Then he straightened to full height again, the veins in his neck standing like cables. He poured himself a glass, not a wobble in his hand. He drank it in one swallow, then exhaled. "If you think gravity teaches men to kneel," he said, his voice steady as a sledgehammer, "you've never worked a mining rig. Gravity tries to kill us every day. We don't bow to it. We curse it, spit on it, and then we climb anyway." The pressure snapped off as suddenly as it had begun. My knees tingled with the blood rushing back. Nadia sagged against the bulkhead, sweat shining on her temple, but her grin was feral. Bishop straightened, shaking his arms loose like he was limbering up for the real fight. The robed man didn't look pleased. His smile was too thin, too forced now. "Curious," he said softly, like he was taking notes. "Resilience in primitive stock. But stubbornness is not strength. It is waste. You will learn when the tribunal assesses your debt." Debt. That word again. It slid out of his mouth like a knife. I'd heard it my whole life, owed rent, owed docking fees, owed for every bolt and ration the company men swore they'd front us. Debt was how they chain you without needing shackles. These bastards had scaled it to galaxies. The guards began filing past us into the ship, scanners humming, eyes cold and mechanical. They treated our home like it was already theirs, like Widow's Run was just another piece of junk to catalog and strip. Bishop bristled, but Pike's low rumble kept him in check. "Let 'em look. Don't give them cause." I stayed with Pike and the robed man. He hadn't moved from his hovering dais, robes untouched by sweat or dirt. "Your ship is unworthy of the lanes," he said, inspecting his nails as though we were an inconvenience, not people. "You will dock here until the tribunal rules. Your freedom is suspended." "Suspended?" I barked. "We didn't sign your rules. We don't belong to your damned tribunal." The man tilted his silver gaze at me like he was amused by a child's tantrum. "All who enter crown space belong. The Empire is not a choice. It is gravity. You will adapt, or you will break." My fists ached from clenching. I wanted to hit him, to smear that smug look off his perfect face, but Pike's hand brushed my shoulder, a steadying weight heavier than any false gravity. "Not yet," he murmured. The guards returned from the ship, their scanners beeping with data. One bowed her head slightly to the robed man and handed over a crystalline slate. He glanced at it, his smile curling cruel at the edges. No registry, no recognized genetic code, tools of war disguised as salvage, contraband intoxicants, primitive energy coils. This vessel will be impounded. Its crew will be processed. Processed? Nadia asked from behind me. Like grain? Like assets, the robed man corrected smoothly. Your debt is considerable already for violation of crown space. You will work until it is paid, or until your bones are more useful as lime for the soil. The guard nearest me twitched her weapon toward my chest. Reflex. I was already half a step forward before Pike's voice cut through like steel on steel. Enough, he said, and the word had weight. We'll go. We'll stand before your tribunal, but hear me clear. We won't kneel. Not now, not ever. Write that in your report. The robed man studied him for a long moment, his perfect mask cracking just a hair at the edges. For the first time, I thought I saw it. Something like unease behind the silver eyes. Not fear, not yet, but confusion. He wasn't used to prey that smiled at the teeth. Very well, he said finally, cold again. Let the tribunal be entertained by your defiance. Perhaps they will enjoy breaking it. He turned his dais with a flick of his hand. The guards closed ranks, surrounding us in a precise square. Their weapons hummed, not aimed but ready. They wanted us to move, to twitch wrong, to justify a blood stain on the deck. Pike gave a nod, and we fell in step. The walk through the station was a lesson in arrogance. Vaulted corridors of white stone, floors so polished they shone like water, murals depicting endless rows of crowned figures trampling faceless crowds. Every passerby was either armored to the teeth or robed in silks, their noses high, their eyes sliding past us like we were bugs. Drones floated overhead, humming faint lullabies that made my stomach crawl. But it wasn't perfect. Not completely. I saw it in the cracks, the way a maintenance worker in plain gray ducked his head as we passed, refusing to look. The way a servant girl in blue robes held her tray too tight, knuckles pale. Fear lived here, thick and quiet. People didn't move with pride, they moved with practice. The tribunal chamber loomed like a cathedral of polished cruelty. Pillars rose into shadow, carved with words in a language I couldn't read but understood anyway. Obedience, loyalty, debt, crown. A dais sat at the far end, larger than the one that carried our robed escort, with seats like thrones for 9 figures already waiting. They glittered with gold and jewels, faces blank behind masks shaped like snarling animals. We were shoved into the center of the chamber. A ring of light burned around us, hot enough I could feel it prick my skin. Some kind of field, containment, display. A booming voice echoed, not from a throat, but from every surface at once. Unregistered humans, you trespass in crown space. You stand accused of debt to the Empire. You will kneel and submit to assessment. Pike stepped forward. No hesitation. We don't kneel. You want us bent? Break us, but we won't bow. The chamber buzzed, a low murmur from unseen observers. The 9 figures on the dais shifted slightly, masks glinting. One leaned forward, its voice oily. Defiance is common in primitives. It fades quickly. Gravity always wins. I barked a laugh before I could stop myself. The sound echoed raw and ugly in their perfect hall. Funny thing about gravity, I said, voice carrying because I wanted it to. We left it behind the first time we lit a fire under metal. We've been defying it ever since. One of the masked figures hissed, a sound like steam. Arrogance. You think your kind unique? Thousands said the same. All serve now, all kneel. Then maybe you've never met humans before, I said. Pike didn't stop me. He let it ride. He knew the truth as well as I did. They didn't know what they'd caught in their net. We weren't polished. We weren't orderly. We weren't trained to obey every bell that rang. We were stubborn, dirty, loud, and mean, and we didn't flinch. The robed official who had escorted us stepped forward and bowed to the dais. Honored tribunal, I present these humans for debt assessment. Their ship carries contraband and weapons. They resist kneeling. I recommend seizure of assets and immediate branding. Branding. The word turned my stomach cold. I'd seen cattle branded once, back home on freehold. Flesh sizzling, smoke rising, the animal thrashing while men held it down. These bastards wanted to do that to us. Pike's voice cut through my spiraling rage. You can impound the ship. You can take our whiskey. You can even weigh us down with your fake gravity. But mark me now. We will not kneel. And every time you try to force it, you'll regret it. The tribunal chamber was silent. Utterly silent. Then the central figure leaned forward, mask shaped like a lion, voice deep enough to rattle my chest. We accept your challenge, human. You will not kneel yet. You will be tested. If you survive, you may keep your spine. If you fail, your bones will decorate our gardens. The light around us flared, blinding white. I felt the floor vanish beneath my boots, weightless for a breath, then dropping hard into darkness. Wherever they were sending us, it wasn't a cell. It was something worse. And I knew one thing as I hit the ground. They'd made their first mistake. They thought humans would break. But we don't break. We fight. I hit the ground hard enough that my teeth clacked together. The air whooshed out of my lungs in a grunt, and for a second the world was just pain and grit. I rolled onto my back, blinking against harsh light. Above me stretched a ceiling of steel and stone, so high it might as well have been sky. It wasn't the polished marble of the tribunal chamber anymore. This place was rough, utilitarian, the kind of place they didn't show off in murals. Nadia coughed beside me, pulling herself upright. Bishop cursed, shaking dust from his hair. Captain Pike landed last, somehow finding his feet like he'd done this before, knees bent, absorbing the impact. He looked around, calm even as he dusted his hands off on his pants. We were in a pit, that much was obvious. Walls rose 30 meters high, sheer and polished smooth. A ring of lights glared down at us, so bright they blinded out whatever crowd might have been watching. But I could feel them. Eyes, the hum of voices, the weight of an audience above. It wasn't a cell, it was an arena. A voice boomed from above, too loud, too cold to belong to flesh. Test 1. Primitive stock against gravity's truth. Survive or kneel. Panels slid open in the walls. I braced for soldiers, weapons, machines. Instead, the floor shifted beneath us. Plates groaned, metal screamed. Then the whole pit tilted. The ground itself had turned into a slope. Nadia slipped first, sliding toward the wall as the angle increased. She caught herself on a jagged seam, swearing. Bishop and I scrambled for balance, boots screeching against steel. Pike spread his arms for balance, steady as a mountain goat. The floor kept tilting, steeper and steeper, until we were clinging to a wall that was becoming a cliff. At the base, if you could call it that, jagged blades and spikes waited, gleaming wet under the lights. "Gravity's truth," Bishop growled, hanging on by his fingertips. "They're gonna watch us fall like bugs." "Not if we don't fall," Pike said, calm as ever. He hauled Nadia up by the wrist and shoved her toward a protrusion in the steel wall. "Grant, Bishop, up, climb!" Climb, on a wall slick as glass with a pit of knives waiting below. Perfect. I jammed my fingers into a tiny seam between plates, felt the skin tear, and pulled myself higher. The steel was hot, humming faintly. Alive, like it was wired. Sparks nipped at my fingertips. Nadia grunted above me, climbing hand over hand like a cat who'd been cornered too many times. Bishop muttered curses like a prayer, dragging his big frame up slow but steady. The floor tilted further. My stomach lurched as my boot slipped, scraping sparks down the metal. For a moment I dangled by one bleeding hand. My arms screamed. Then Pike's voice cut through. "Don't flinch. Don't give them the fall." I bared my teeth and hauled myself higher. The tilt stopped. Now the wall was nearly vertical, and the spikes below seemed to breathe. Glinting as if hungry, the lights above flickered, and the voice boomed again. "Test 1 incomplete. Escalation." The steel wall shuddered. Panels opened above us, dumping streams of liquid down. It splashed hot and sticky across my face, stinging my cuts. I licked instinctively, and gagged. Oil. The whole wall was being greased. "Son of a bitch," Bishop spat, his grip sliding. "They're lubing it." My hands slipped an inch, then 2. My nails clawed uselessly at the slick metal. Nadia shrieked as she dropped half a meter before catching herself on a rivet. Pike slammed his boot against the wall and dug into a tiny groove, anchoring himself with sheer stubbornness. "They want us to kneel," he barked. "Not yet. Spread out. Find the seams." I wiped my hand against my shirt, smearing oil, then dug back in. My fingers screamed, skin peeling. But I found a crack, shoved 2 fingers deep and pulled higher. My muscles burned, but I ignored it. Better to burn than to fall. Above us, a shadow moved. For a moment I thought it was a drone. Then claws gripped the edge of the wall. Something climbed over. A creature, tall and lean, armored in plates that looked grown, not forged. Its eyes burned orange in the glare. A leash trailed from its collar, leading up into the darkness where handlers hid. "Gladiator pets," Pike muttered. "They're not just testing gravity. They're feeding us to the dogs." The beast roared, a sound like metal tearing, and launched itself down the wall. I didn't think. I just moved. My hand found a loose panel seam. I yanked, felt the metal give, and tore a shard free, jagged as a broken bottle. The beast slammed into the wall near me, claws sinking deep, drool hissing as it hit the oil. I drove the shard into its foreleg. It howled, thrashing, and slipped lower, gouging trails in the steel. Nadia kicked it in the snout, sending teeth flying. It slid further, screaming, then impaled itself on the spikes below. Blood sprayed, steaming where it touched metal. The crowd above roared, not in anger, in delight. Bishop snarled, dragging himself higher. "They're enjoying this like it's sport." "It is sport," Pike said grimly. "We're the clowns in their circus. Keep climbing." More shadows appeared above. 2 beasts this time, snarling, claws raking sparks as they descended. "Split them," Pike ordered. "Grant, left. Bishop, right. Nadia, stay high. I'll take whichever's faster." My beast lunged, claws aiming for my head. I swung the metal shard, slicing its muzzle. Hot blood splashed my face. It shrieked, and its claw missed my skull by inches. I shoved off, swinging on my handhold, and kicked it square in the throat. It gagged, wheezing, but it didn't fall. It came again. I stabbed, missed, nearly lost my grip. My vision blurred with sweat and blood. Then Nadia screamed from above. Her boot connected with its jaw, snapping its head sideways. That gave me the opening. I rammed the shard into its eye. It went limp, weight dragging it down, claws scrabbling until it vanished into the spikes below. Bishop's beast wasn't so easy. It was bigger, meaner, with 2 sets of claws. It pinned him against the wall, snapping at his throat. He bellowed and shoved back with sheer brute force. Pike dropped down like death from above, wrapping an arm around the beast's throat and driving his knife into the gap between plates. He twisted. The creature howled, convulsed, then collapsed. The crowd's roar was thunder now, shaking the walls. The voice boomed again. "Test 1 concluded. Primitive stock resists gravity. Escalation authorized." The wall shuddered. The tilt reversed. Suddenly, we weren't climbing anymore. We were falling backward, the whole pit flipping beneath us. I grabbed for anything, my fingers finding a groove, but Nadia screamed as she slipped free. Pike dove, catching her wrist in midair. His teeth gritted as her weight nearly tore him off, too. The wall became floor again, but this time the spikes retracted, replaced by something worse. Doors opening, gears grinding. Something massive was coming. The ground trembled under my boots. A roar bellowed, deeper than thunder. The doors burst open, and out crawled a monster the size of a tank, plated in bone and steel, eyes glowing red. Chains trailed from its shoulders, snapping free as it moved. The crowd went insane. I tightened my grip on the shard, chest heaving. "They want us broken." "No," Pike said, pulling Nadia upright. His eyes were fire now. "They want us to kneel." He spat blood onto the steel floor. "Then we show them humans don't." The beast charged, and we met it head-on. The beast thundered forward like an avalanche with legs. Each step rattled the steel under my boots, sending vibrations straight up my bones. Its head was low, horned like a battering ram, armored plates grinding against one another like boulders in a storm. Its jaws opened wide enough to swallow me whole, lined with teeth that looked forged, not grown. The Empire didn't breed animals, they built them. Nadia screamed, darting aside as it lunged, jaws snapping shut where she'd stood. The sound was like steel gates slamming together. Bishop roared, his big frame barreling forward, planting both hands against its horned skull to shove it off balance. For a heartbeat, it worked. The beast staggered, claws gouging sparks from the floor. But then it tossed its head, flinging Bishop aside like he was a rag doll. He hit the wall with a crack that made my stomach lurch. "Bishop!" I shouted, but there was no time. The beast turned on me, its red eyes locked with mine, glowing with some cruel intelligence, or maybe just hunger. I still had the jagged shard from earlier, slick with blood and oil. Against this thing, it was a toothpick, but it was all I had. "Come on then," I snarled, spreading my stance. My hands shook, but not from fear. Adrenaline burned through me like fire. The beast lunged. I dove aside, rolling across hot steel. My shoulder screamed, but I came up swinging, driving the shard into the seam between two plates along its flank. The point sank shallow, scraping metal. The beast shrieked, a sound so loud it rattled my teeth and kicked sideways. Its claws caught me across the ribs. Pain flared white, and I flew backward, crashing onto the floor hard enough to see stars. Before it could finish me, Pike was there. He stood dead center, no weapon in hand, just his knife and his will. The beast lowered its head. Growling. Pike didn't move, didn't flinch. He looked like an old soldier daring death to come closer. It charged. At the last instant, Pike sidestepped. His hand shot out, grabbing one of the chains still hooked to its shoulders. He yanked with all his weight, spinning with the momentum. The beast's head slammed sideways into the wall, cracking the steel and sending shards flying. The crowd above roared with approval, their cheers echoing like a storm. "Grant, get up!" Pike barked, still hanging onto the chain. The beast thrashed, dragging him across the floor, but he didn't let go. I staggered upright, blood dripping down my side. Nadia was scrambling up the wall again, looking for height, for leverage. Bishop groaned, pushing himself to his knees, blood running from his temple. The beast reared back, chains whipping. Pike let go at the perfect moment, rolling clear as its horn gouged a crater in the floor. I saw it then, under its plates, between joints, faint glowing seams, power conduits, weak points. "Hit the seams!" I yelled, pointing. The others saw it, too. Bishop stumbled forward, grabbing a loose pipe from the wreckage of the wall. He hefted it like a war club, teeth bared. Nadia shouted from above, "Move it toward me!" I ran, every step screaming in my ribs, and slashed my shard into one of the glowing seams behind its foreleg. Sparks burst, the beast shrieking in pain as black fluid sprayed across me. It spun, tail whipping. I ducked, barely. The air whistled as it passed over my head. Bishop bellowed and swung his pipe like a hammer, smashing it into the seam on its other side. The sound was like striking a gong. The plate cracked, wires spilling. The beast screamed louder, bucking and twisting. Nadia leapt from the wall. She dropped onto its back, dagger flashing. She drove it down between plates, twisting until sparks exploded. The beast convulsed, nearly throwing her off. She clung on, shrieking wordless defiance. Pike charged straight for its head. He didn't dodge this time. He vaulted onto its horn, climbing as it reared. His knife flashed once, twice, sinking into the seam just below its eye. The beast howled, thrashing like a demon. I rammed my shard deep into its chest seam. Sparks blinded me. My hands burned, but I shoved until something inside gave way. The beast jerked once, twice, then collapsed with a crash that shook the pit. Silence, for one long heartbeat. Silence. Then the crowd exploded. Cheers, roars, a storm of sound that rattled the walls. They weren't angry. They weren't disgusted. They were thrilled. The Empire wanted a show, and we'd given them one. Pike stood on the beast's skull, knife dripping, his chest heaving. He lifted his head to the tribunal shadows above and spat. "That all you've got?" The chamber went quiet again. The booming voice returned, colder than before. Test 2 concluded. Primitive stock shows. Resistance. Escalation required. The floor beneath us split apart with a grinding roar. The beast's corpse slid into darkness, chains dragging it down. We scrambled back, panting, bleeding, coated in oil and blood. The ground shifted, rising, carrying us upward. The pit walls fell away, and suddenly we were standing in the open again. Not the tribunal chamber, but another arena, this one larger, ringed with thousands of onlookers. Their faces gleamed in the light of torches and banners, masks of gold and silver watching us like vultures. The robed official from before stood on a platform above. Silver eyes glittering. "You amuse the Empire," he called. His voice was amplified, carried across the arena. "You resist gravity, you slay beasts, but you cannot resist forever. You will kneel." I spat blood and wiped my mouth with the back of my hand. "Come down here and make me, you smug bastard!" The crowd laughed, a ripple of cruel delight. The official didn't flinch. He just raised a hand. Massive gates opened at the far end of the arena. Out rolled machines this time. Not beasts. Machines. Six-legged constructs, armored in black steel. Each bristling with blades and guns that hummed with sick energy. Their eyes burned the same red as the beasts, but colder, emptier. "Test 3, the voice boomed. "Resistance against the Crown's soldiers." Bishop groaned, wiping blood from his eye. "They keep sending bigger toys." "Then we keep breaking them," Pike said flatly. The machines began to move, legs stabbing the ground with precise rhythm. Their weapons spun up, whining like hungry wolves. Nadia cursed under her breath. "We don't have guns, Pike. We don't have armor. We're meat against machines." Pike looked at each of us in turn. His eyes were steady, hard, unflinching. Then we fight like humans, dirty, mean, and without bowing. The first machine fired. A bolt of searing light scorched the floor where I'd been standing a heartbeat before. I dove behind a jagged hunk of the fallen wall, the heat blistering my skin even from a miss. Sparks rained, smoke rising. We weren't going to win this clean. Not against machines built to kill. But maybe that wasn't the point. Maybe the point was to show them we wouldn't kneel, no matter what they threw at us. I tightened my grip on my shard of metal, blood dripping from my knuckles. I could hear Bishop growling like a bear, hear Nadia swearing like a dockhand, hear Pike's steady breathing. We weren't done. Not yet. The machines closed in, weapons blazing, and we charged. The first machine's shot scorched the arena floor, leaving molten lines in the steel. I could feel the heat radiating through my boots as I sprinted across open ground. Behind me, another blast ripped the air, so loud it felt like someone had slapped my skull. These weren't beasts anymore. Beasts bleed. Beasts hesitate. These things didn't. They advanced in formation, 6 legs stabbing in unison, weapons tracking us with surgical precision. "Spread out," Pike bellowed, his voice carrying even over the chaos. "Make them divide!" I broke left. Bishop broke right. Nadia scrambled for height, scaling a collapsed support beam like it was a ladder. Pike strode forward dead center, calm in the firestorm, like he was daring the machines to focus on him. And they did. 3 of them locked onto him at once. Their guns glowed, building to a blinding pulse. My stomach lurched. "Move!" I shouted, but Pike didn't. At the last instant, he dropped to his stomach, sliding across the hot steel. The blasts tore overhead, missing by a breath, slamming into the opposite wall with explosions that shook the entire arena. Chunks of molten debris rained down into the crowd. The onlookers screamed, not in fear, but in delight. Pike came up on one knee, knife in hand. He hurled it, not at the machines themselves, but at the ground near their legs. The knife hit a seam in the floor, sparks shooting up, startling one machine just enough to stagger its step. That was all Bishop needed. The big man roared and swung his scavenged pipe like a war club, smashing into the machine's forward leg joint. The impact rang like a church bell. The joint cracked. The machine stumbled, legs tangling. "Got you, bastard!" Bishop snarled, swinging again and again, sparks flying with every strike. The machine reeled back, struggling to regain balance. Another machine pivoted toward him, guns whining as they powered up. I sprinted, lungs burning, and hurled myself at its side. My shard of metal screeched against its armor, useless at first. Then I saw it, the glowing seam again, faint but there. I jammed the shard deep, forcing it between plates. Sparks burst. The machine shuddered, turning its guns toward me. "Grant!" Nadia's voice cut through the roar. I looked up just in time to see her leap from above, dagger gripped in both hands. She landed on the machine's back, driving her blade into its glowing seam. Sparks erupted again, brighter this time. The machine convulsed, staggered, then collapsed onto its side with a crash that shook the ground. The crowd roared. Nadia rolled clear, panting, her braid wild around her face. She grinned through blood and sweat. "2 down. 4 to go," Pike said grimly. He picked up his knife from the floor where it had landed, twirling it once like he'd never doubted it would come back to him. The remaining machines spread out, adjusting their formation. They weren't mindless. They were learning. Their red eyes swept the arena, locking onto us with cold calculation. "Careful," I muttered, wiping blood from my mouth. "They're thinking now." One of them fired again, a beam scorching across the ground toward Pike. He dove behind the carcass of the downed beast, the blast ripping chunks of steel into the air. Another machine turned its guns on Nadia, who darted behind a broken pillar. Bishop was still hammering at the crippled one, finally smashing its leg clean off. The machine collapsed, twitching. He roared in triumph, sweat and blood streaking his face. Then another machine shot him. The blast hit his side, knocking him off his feet. He hit the ground hard, rolling. Smoke rose from his jacket, the fabric charred. "Bishop!" I sprinted toward him, sliding across the floor. He was alive, barely. His chest heaved, his teeth bared against the pain. "Son of a bitch nearly cooked me," he wheezed. I dragged him behind cover as another blast slammed into the ground where he'd been. Sparks rained across us. "Stay down," I muttered. "Like hell," Bishop growled, pushing himself upright. His hands shook, but he gripped the pipe again. "I'm not kneeling for these metal bastards." Pike appeared beside us, face streaked with grime, knife dripping machine fluid. His eyes burned. "They want a show? Give 'em one." The three of us exchanged a look. Bloody, broken, grinning anyway. Humans never look better than when the odds are impossible. We moved as one. Bishop went wide, dragging the machine's fire with his size and roar. I sprinted low, darting in close while their weapons struggled to track me. Pike climbed straight onto one's back, stabbing into seams, ripping wires out with his bare hands. Sparks exploded across his shoulders, lighting him like a demon. Nadia dropped from above again, but this time she didn't aim for a seam. She hurled her dagger at the machine's eye. It hit dead center, shattering the lens. The machine screamed, actually screamed, as it convulsed, firing blindly in every direction. One bolt slammed into another machine, blowing its leg off. It toppled, thrashing, and Pike stabbed his knife deep into its exposed guts. The thing went still, twitching, smoke rising from its carcass. The crowd was on their feet now, roaring louder than ever. Some chanted in a language I couldn't understand. Others just screamed for more blood. 3 machines down, 3 left. The remaining ones circled us, smarter now. Their guns didn't fire wild anymore. They moved slow, precise, waiting for us to make a mistake. "They're boxing us in," Nadia hissed, wiping blood from her arm. "Then we break the box," Pike said. He looked at me. "Grant? Ideas?" I scanned the arena. The floor, the walls, the machines. Then I saw it. The chains still dragging across the ground from where the beast had been hauled away. Heavy, strong. "Trip them," I said. "Use their weight against them." Pike nodded once. "Do it." Bishop and I grabbed the chains, heaving them across the arena floor. The machines tracked us, guns whirring, but they didn't see the trap until it was too late. One stepped forward, its legs tangling in the chain. Bishop and I yanked with everything we had. The machine toppled forward, crashing to the ground with a deafening clang. Pike was on it instantly, knife plunging into its glowing seam again and again until it stopped moving. 2 left. The last 2 moved together now, side by side, learning. Their guns charged, glowing bright enough to blind. "Cover!" Pike barked, and we dove behind wreckage as twin beams seared the arena, cutting molten trenches in the floor. The heat blistered my skin even through cover. "They're not going to stop!" Nadia shouted. "Then we don't either," Pike said. He stood, tall, bloodied, but unflinching. "Grant, Bishop, push right. Nadia, high ground, I'll take center." We moved. Bishop roared. Swinging his pipe at one machine's leg, I jammed my shard into its seam, sparks exploding. Nadia hurled another dagger, hitting a glowing joint. The machine staggered, legs buckling. Pike leapt onto the second one, climbing like a man possessed. His knife flashed again and again, tearing into wires, ripping plates. The machine screamed, thrashing, but he clung tight, unshakable. He drove the blade deep one final time, and the light in its eye went out. It collapsed beneath him. The last one turned, guns glowing, aiming straight at Pike. "Pike!" I shouted, running. Too far, too slow. The machine fired, but Bishop was there first. He threw himself between Pike and the blast, pipe raised like a shield. The energy slammed into him, hurling him backward, but he took it. He hit the ground, smoking, coughing, still alive. "Kill it!" he roared. Nadia's dagger flew, hitting the machine's eye. I dove with my shard, plunging it into the glowing seam. Pike rammed his knife in deep beside mine. Sparks exploded. The machine screamed, then collapsed, legs folding under it. Silence. For one long moment, the arena was silent. Then the crowd erupted, louder than ever. A storm of noise that shook the steel itself. We stood in the center of the wreckage, bleeding, burned, broken, but alive. Pike raised his knife, defiant. Bishop dragged himself upright, coughing blood but grinning. Nadia wiped her blade clean on her shirt. We didn't kneel, and the Empire saw it. The tribunal's voice boomed, cold and hard. Test 3 concluded. Primitive stock resists soldiers. Escalation authorized. The crowd roared again, demanding more. But I saw it in the shadows above, behind the masks. A crack. Just a sliver. For the first time, they weren't certain. For the first time, humans hadn't played by their script. We weren't breaking. We were making them bend. The wreckage of the last machine still smoked when the arena lights dimmed. The crowd hadn't quieted. They were howling, chanting in their strange tongue, their voices blending into one endless demand. More. Always more. My lungs burned with smoke and blood. My ribs felt like shattered glass grinding every time I breathed. Bishop was half collapsed against a broken plate, coughing up flecks of red, his skin blistered where the blast had caught him. Nadia stood with her dagger clutched tight. Defiant, but I could see her knees trembling, her braid matted with blood. And Pike stood straight, knife in hand, eyes fixed on the tribunal shadows above. He hadn't flinched once. Not when gravity pressed us down, not when beasts tore at our throats, not when machines tried to burn us out of existence. He looked like stone. The booming voice filled the arena again, colder than it had ever been. Tests 1 through 3. Survived. The pause stretched, heavy, like even the tribunal hadn't expected to be saying those words. Escalation authorized. The crowd shrieked approval. Pike spat blood into the dirt and shouted up at them, his voice carrying raw and sharp. "You're running out of tricks. Throw what you want. We'll still be standing." The lights shifted. Not the bright arena glare anymore. Red. Warning red. The kind of light that makes your gut drop, because it means danger isn't entertainment. It's survival. A low rumble shook the ground. The gates at the far end groaned open again, gears grinding, chains rattling. But this time nothing rushed out. No beasts, no machines, just silence. Then the air changed. The pressure hit me first. My ears popped. My skin prickled. The air itself felt heavier, hotter. Bishop groaned, clutching his head. Nadia swore under her breath. Something was coming, something different. Out of the shadows slid a shape so vast I thought at first it was part of the wall. It slithered forward, metallic plates shifting like scales. A body so long I couldn't see where it ended. Its head rose, serpentine, taller than the arena walls. Eyes like burning suns fixed on us. Its mouth opened, and the sound it made wasn't a roar. It was a vibration, deep and low, that made my teeth ache and my vision blur. "What the hell is that?" I whispered, but I already knew. It wasn't an animal. It wasn't a machine. It was both. Something the Empire had bred and built together. Something designed for one purpose: absolute destruction. The crowd fell into silence, like even they understood this wasn't just a show anymore. This was annihilation. Nadia's voice was tight, ragged. "Pike, we can't kill that." He didn't take his eyes off it. "Then we survive it. That's enough." The serpent lunged. The ground shook as its head slammed down, teeth shattering steel like glass. I dove, rolling as debris exploded around me. Heat seared my skin as its mouth snapped shut where I'd been. Bishop staggered, nearly falling into the gap it left. Pike yanked him back by the collar, steadying him just before the floor gave way. "Move!" Pike barked. "Don't let it corner us!" We scattered, sprinting across the broken arena floor. The serpent's body coiled, sweeping like a living wall. Nadia screamed as it slammed down near her, sending her flying. She hit the ground hard, her dagger skittering away. I sprinted toward her, ribs screaming, lungs burning. The serpent's head swung back, eyes glowing brighter, fixing on her prone form. "No!" I roared, throwing myself between them. I hurled the jagged shard with all the strength left in me. It clanged off its armored face, useless. But it bought half a second. Pike was already moving, knife flashing as he leapt onto its body. He stabbed into the seam between scales, hanging on with one hand as the serpent writhed. Sparks flew. The beast thrashed, slamming itself against the walls, trying to shake him off. Pike held, always holding. Bishop stumbled forward, pipe in hand, and swung with everything he had. The pipe dented the serpent's side, barely, but enough to draw its attention. It hissed, a sound like steam from a ruptured engine, and struck. The impact sent Bishop flying. He hit the ground with a sickening crack, rolling limp. "Bishop!" I scrambled toward him, but Nadia's scream cut through. The serpent had her pinned now, its massive body coiling around her like a snake around prey. She slashed with her dagger, screaming defiance, but her blade barely scratched its scales. It squeezed. She gasped, choking. "Pike!" I shouted. He was climbing higher on its back, knife plunging again and again, sparks raining. He roared, a sound half human, half animal, and drove the blade into the seam at the base of its skull. For the first time, the serpent screamed in pain, its coils loosened just enough. Nadia wriggled free, rolling clear. I grabbed her arm and dragged her upright. Her face was pale, eyes wide, but she was alive. The serpent reared back, towering above us, blood and sparks dripping from its wounds. Its eyes blazed brighter, rage incarnate. It wasn't just a predator anymore, it was furious. And it was learning. It swept its head low, mouth glowing. Not just heat this time, energy, a beam building in its throat, humming with lethal power. Pike leapt clear just as it fired. The beam tore across the arena, obliterating everything in its path. Steel melted, stone vaporized. The shockwave slammed into me, hurling me across the floor. My ears rang, my vision blurred. When I staggered up, half deaf, I saw what it had done. Half the arena floor was gone, a molten trench stretching across the pit. If that beam had hit us directly, we'd have been ash. The crowd wasn't cheering anymore. They were silent, tense, watching with wide eyes. Even they hadn't expected this. Nadia spat blood, her hands trembling as she picked up her dagger again. "We can't do this, Pike," she gasped. "Not like this." He stood, knife in hand, blood streaking his face, eyes blazing. "We don't have to kill it. We just have to prove we won't kneel." "How?" I demanded, my voice raw. Pike looked at the serpent, then at us. "We bring it down. Together." Bishop groaned from the floor, dragging himself upright. His leg was bent wrong, but he was still alive, still fighting. He grinned through blood. "Then let's break this bastard." We moved. Pike climbed again, knife digging deep into seams, blood and sparks spraying. Nadia darted for its head, slashing at its glowing eyes, blinding one. I grabbed a length of broken chain from the floor, wrapping it around my hands, and leapt onto its body. I wrapped the chain around a joint, pulling with everything I had, wrenching it backward. The serpent writhed, screaming, thrashing so hard the arena walls cracked. Its tail slammed into the stands, sending masked nobles scattering. The crowd shrieked in terror now, not delight. For the first time, fear. "Pull!" Pike roared. "Don't let go!" We pulled. Nadia slashed. Bishop swung his pipe until his arms gave out. Pike stabbed again and again into the base of its skull. With one final shuddering scream, the serpent collapsed. Its body crashed into the floor, shattering steel, sending dust and smoke billowing. Its glowing eyes flickered, dimmed, and finally went dark. Silence. We stood on its corpse, bleeding, broken, burned, but alive, and still not kneeling. The crowd was dead quiet now. No cheers, no roars, just silence, heavy and thick. The tribunal masks above stared down at us, unreadable. Pike spat blood onto the serpent's body and raised his knife high. His voice echoed through the silence, raw and unyielding. "You will not break us, not today, not ever." The silence stretched. Then, slowly, a ripple moved through the crowd. Not cheers, not screams, whispers, uneasy, afraid. The Empire had shown us its worst, and we were still standing. That was the first crack. The serpent's corpse steamed beneath our boots, its blood sizzling where it splattered molten steel. The arena reeked of oil, ozone, and death. My ribs screamed with every breath. My hands were torn and bleeding. But I was still upright. So were we all. And above us, for the first time since this nightmare began, the Empire wasn't cheering. Silence pressed down harder than gravity ever had. The nobles in their jeweled masks had gone rigid, whispering to each other behind gloved hands. Even the robed functionary with the silver eyes, our smug escort, looked less like a man in control and more like someone who'd just seen a dog bite through its chain. Captain Pike stood tall on the serpent's skull, knife raised, chest heaving. He wasn't shouting now. He didn't need to. His silence was louder than any war cry. He didn't bow, he didn't kneel, he just stood, defiant, bloody, unbroken, and the crowd saw it. A ripple moved through them, not applause, not outrage, whispers, uneasy murmurs, quick glances, fear. I'd grown up around fear, miners, dock rats, men with nothing left but debts they'd never pay. I knew the look when people see someone stand against the boot and realize they don't have to take the stomp. The tribunal masks leaned forward on their dais, their jeweled animal faces glittering in the harsh light. The central one, lion-shaped, tilted its head slightly. A voice boomed, low and cold. Test 4 concluded. Primitive stock resists design. Verdict, delayed. Delayed. Not passed, not failed. They didn't know what to call us anymore. The robed functionary floated forward on his dais, silver eyes narrowing. Enough spectacle? These creatures are dangerous. They must be broken, branded, and bent into service before their defiance spreads. His voice echoed across the arena. Some in the crowd nodded eagerly. Others didn't. A man in the stands shouted something I didn't understand, but the word repeated itself. Caught in the crowd like a spark in dry grass, the same word over and over, rising in volume. I turned to Nadia, panting, blood on her lips. "What are they saying?" She frowned, listening hard. "Not sure, but it sounds like rise." Rise. The tribunal masks shifted uneasily. The functionary's lips curled, baring those perfect teeth. "Silence," he barked, amplified across the arena. "There is no rising. There is only the crown." But the chant didn't stop. It grew louder. "Rise, rise, rise." I saw it in the eyes of the common workers packed into the lower seats, the ones in drab robes, the ones who weren't jeweled or armored, the ones who scrubbed floors and hauled chains. They weren't cheering anymore. They were staring at us. at Pike, at the fact we hadn't knelt. Their fear was cracking. The functionary's silver eyes glinted with panic now. He gestured sharply. "Guards! Contain them, now!" Doors around the arena slammed open. Columns of soldiers marched in. Dozens, maybe hundreds, armor gleaming, rifles humming with lethal energy. They moved in perfect formation, boots pounding the floor in unison. Nadia groaned. "Great! We killed their pets. So now they're sending the Kennel Master's whole damn army." Bishop leaned on his pipe, blood dripping from his busted lip. "Hell with it. Let 'em come. I'll take as many as I can." I gripped my shard tighter, knuckles raw. We were done for. We all knew it. We couldn't fight an army. But I'd be damned if I gave them the satisfaction of seeing me crawl. Pike stepped forward, planting himself between us and the soldiers. He raised his voice, deep and steady, carrying across the arena. "You want us on our knees? Break us. Otherwise we stand." The crowd roared, not in cheers, not in joy, but in something darker, something dangerous. The chant rose again. "Rise, rise, rise!" The guards hesitated, just for a breath, but I saw it. Their perfect formation wavered. Not much, but enough. "Do you hear them?" Pike barked, pointing at the stands. "They're tired of kneeling too." The tribunal masks shifted, agitated. One slammed its jeweled fist on the dais, voice booming. "Silence these animals!" But the word animals had the opposite effect. The crowd's chant surged louder, now a rolling thunder that shook the steel. "Rise, rise!" The guards froze again. They weren't looking at us anymore. They were looking up, at the crowd. Some of those whispers weren't whispers anymore. They were shouts, fists raised, faces uncovered. Ordinary people standing in defiance for the first time in God knows how long. The functionary's voice cracked, furious. "Kneel them now!" The guards raised their rifles. Pike didn't move. He didn't flinch. He just stood there, knife in hand, eyes blazing. And then, one guard lowered his rifle. It was small, subtle, but it was enough. Another followed. Then another. Until a full rank of soldiers was frozen, rifles still raised, but no longer steady. The tribunal roared in outrage. One of the masked judges shouted, voice trembling with fury, "Mutiny!" The crowd erupted. People poured over the lower walls, surging into the arena. Workers, servants, men and women in drab clothes, they swarmed the floor, screaming, chanting, hurling stones and debris. Guards tried to shove them back, but the formation broke. It was chaos. Beautiful chaos. Pike turned to us, his voice low but steady. "This isn't our fight alone anymore. The fire's lit, we just have to keep it burning." Nadia's grin was bloody, feral. "Then let's burn it down!" The functionary on his floating dais sneered, his silver eyes glowing with fury. "You've doomed them all," he hissed. "You've infected them with your stubborn filth." Pike stepped closer, his knife dripping with serpent blood. "No," he said quietly. "We reminded them they still have spines." The dais drifted back, retreating toward the safety of the tribunal's platform. Guards closed in around the functionary, trying to shield him. The nobles in the stands were panicking now, scrambling for exits as the chant grew deafening. "Rise, rise, rise!" Bishop staggered to his feet, pipe resting on his shoulder, grinning like a madman. "Captain, what's the play?" Pike's eyes swept the chaos, the guards, the rioting crowd, the tribunal looming above. His jaw set. "The play is simple. We walk out of here alive." "And if they stop us?" I asked. He looked up at the dais, at the lion mask staring down with fury. His grin was sharp, bloody. "Then the Empire learns what happens when you corner humans." He turned to the crowd, shouting so loud it cut through the chaos. Stand with us, and you'll never kneel again." The roar that answered him was like nothing I'd ever heard. Not cheers, not worship, a promise. The tribunal had wanted a spectacle. They got a spark instead. And now the fire was spreading. I tightened my grip on my shard, heart hammering, blood dripping down my side. The Empire thought we'd be broken. Instead, they'd just made us dangerous. And for the first time, I saw it in their jeweled masks, in their silver eyes. Fear. The arena was no longer a place of spectacle. It was a battlefield. Smoke coiled up from shattered machines and burning banners. The serpent's carcass still steamed, its glow fading into black ruin. The crowd had become a mob, surging down from the stands, shouting, throwing whatever they had. Stones, metal scraps, broken masks ripped from nobles' faces. The chant rolled over everything else, deafening. Rise! 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 Guards scrambled to form lines, rifles raised, but their formation buckled under the pressure. Some fired into the mob. Screams cut the air. Bodies fell. But for everyone that dropped, 3 more pushed forward, rage drowning fear. Beside me, Bishop staggered, bloodied pipe resting on his shoulder. He was grinning through broken teeth. "Hell of a show we've started." "You still breathing?" I asked, wiping blood from my eyes. "Barely, but breathing's enough to keep swinging." Nadia crouched by the serpent's skull, ripping wires from the wreckage. Her hands shook, but her eyes burned. "We can't stay here. More guards are coming." Pike stood in the center of it all, calm as always, knife dripping, eyes fixed on the tribunal above. Their jeweled masks glared down at us, their voices booming commands over the chaos. "Contain them! Silence them! Kneel them!" But no one was kneeling anymore. Not us, not the crowd. Pike finally turned to us. "We're leaving." "Leaving how?" I asked. "In case you haven't noticed, we're surrounded." He nodded toward the gates the machines had come through. "That way. They bring beasts and soldiers in through there. It's a service tunnel. Must lead deeper into the station." "And when it doesn't?" Nadia shot back. "Then we make it." Pike's tone was iron. "We don't stay here to be trophies. We walk out alive." He didn't wait for arguments. He started moving, and like always, we followed. The mob gave us cover. Workers surged past us, some swinging stolen rifles, others wielding tools-turned weapons. Guards tried to cut them down, but their lines collapsed in the flood. I shoved through, ribs screaming, dragging Bishop when he stumbled. Nadia darted ahead, quick and sharp, clearing a path. The gates loomed, massive steel slabs scorched from where the serpent had crashed through. A handful of guards stood there, rifles raised, holding the choke point. Pike didn't slow. The first shot ripped past his shoulder. He kept walking, knife in hand, eyes locked on them. His calm broke them. One guard fired wild, panicked. Another lowered his rifle, uncertain. Then Bishop barreled forward, roaring, pipe swinging. The first guard went down with his helmet caved in. Nadia's dagger found another's throat. I slammed into the third, shard plunging into his seam. Sparks burst, and he crumpled. The rest broke and ran. We pushed through the gates into a dark tunnel humming with machinery. Pipes hissed overhead. The air was hot, metallic, stinking of oil. My lungs burned. But the sound of the mob behind us pushed me forward. The tunnel stretched on, twisting, splitting into side passages. Pike led without hesitation, as if his stubbornness could bend the maze itself. Behind us, the roar of the crowd swelled. The rebellion was spreading. Doors slammed, alarms blared. The station was convulsing. We weren't just escaping. We'd lit a fire we couldn't put out. The functionary's voice suddenly crackled through hidden speakers, cold and furious. "Humans, you have poisoned this place with your defiance. You will be hunted." There is no escape. His voice followed us through every corridor, echoing off steel. You think you've sparked rebellion? It will be drowned in blood. The crown has lasted 1,000 years. You are nothing. Pike stopped, glaring up at the nearest speaker. Then why do you sound afraid? He tore the speaker from the wall with one yank, wires sparking. Then he kept moving. We reached a wide chamber, filled with crates and equipment, cargo, supplies, and beyond it, ships, small ones, shuttles, sleek and polished, lined up like trophies. Nadia gasped. That's our way out. Or our way deeper in, Pike said. Either way, we're not staying here. Guards poured in from the far end, rifles raised. Dozens of them. We froze. My gut clenched. We'd come this far, but there were too many. Even Pike couldn't knife his way through a wall of rifles. The guards took aim. Then one of them fired, at his own commander. The officer dropped, armor smoking. The shooter ripped off his helmet, throwing it to the ground. His face was pale, his jaw set, his eyes blazing. "Rise!" he shouted. The word echoed. More helmets hit the floor, more rifles turned. Not at us, but at their own officers. Shots rang out. Chaos exploded. Bishop laughed, a raw, broken sound. "Hellcap, we're contagious." Pike didn't smile, but his eyes burned. "Then let's spread it further." We sprinted through the chaos, weaving between crates, ducking fire. Rebels, real rebels now, covered our advance, shouting the same word. "Rise." Guards loyal to the crown tried to hold the line, but their formation was crumbling from within. We reached the shuttles, sleek, untouched. Pike slammed his knife into the nearest panel, sparks flying as Nadia shoved past him, hands flying across unfamiliar controls. "I've got this," she hissed. "Just buy me time." Guards surged closer. Pike stood at the ramp, knife ready, Bishop beside him with his ruined pipe. I joined them, shard in hand, chest heaving. The first guard charged. Pike's knife found his throat. Bishop's pipe shattered another's arm. I caught one across the helmet, driving my shard into his visor. Sparks burst. He dropped. Shots ripped the air. Heat seared past my cheek. I staggered, blood dripping from a graze across my arm. Then the shuttle roared to life. Nadia shouted from the cockpit. "It's flying! Get in!" We stumbled aboard, dragging Bishop with us. Pike was last, shoving the final guard off the ramp before slamming it shut. The shuttle lifted, engines howling, the floor trembling under our boots. Through the viewport, I saw the chaos spreading. Fires burned, rebels swarmed. The chant shook the station itself. Rise, rise. The tribunal dais was visible in the distance. Nobles scrambling like ants, their jeweled masks slipping. For the first time, they didn't look like gods. They looked like prey. The functionary's voice cracked through one last time, shrill and furious. "You've doomed them all. Humanity will be hunted across the stars. You will kneel in the ashes of every world you love." Pike leaned toward the comms, voice calm, steady, unshakable. "Then you'd better bring more than gravity." Nadia slammed the throttle. The shuttle blasted forward, engines screaming. The station shrank behind us, a giant hive on fire, rebellion ripping through its veins. We were bleeding, broken, half dead. But we weren't kneeling, and the Empire knew it. For the first time in 1,000 years, they were afraid. And that was enough. We drifted in silence once the stars swallowed us, the chaos left behind. Bishop lay groaning on the floor, clutching his side, but alive. Nadia slumped in the pilot's chair, hands shaking, eyes wild. Pike stood by the viewport, watching the stars with that stone-calm face. I leaned against the bulkhead, every muscle screaming, every cut stinging, and let out a broken laugh. "We really did it," I muttered. "We walked into their empire by accident. And we didn't flinch." Pike didn't turn. His voice was low, steady, almost soft. "We didn't kneel. That's all that matters." For a moment, silence. Then Bishop chuckled, bloody and weak. "Cap, we didn't just escape. We started something, didn't we?" Pike finally turned, his scarred face lit by the faint glow of stars. He didn't smile. He never smiled. But his eyes burned like fire. "We lit the fuse," he said. "Now let's see how big the explosion gets." They thought they'd outsmarted us, sold us garbage and smiled while doing it. Ships that looked like titans on the outside but were hollow, rusted, and one battle away from collapsing. That's what the Galactic Trade Council gave us when we begged for help during the Earth siege. They called them warships, but they were floating tombs. I remember the first time I boarded the GTS Forger. It was all rust and creaking bones. I was just a mechanic back then. A nobody with dirt under his nails and a hatred for everything that had wings or scales. The aliens watched us through their shimmering visors, smirking while pretending to be allies. We were desperate, and they knew it. We'd lost half the planet to the Vuraki swarms. Cities turned into craters. Oceans boiled by plasma storms. We sent a delegation to the Galactic Council, our last hope. And those smug bastards tossed us scraps, leftovers from old wars, relics with engines older than our species' written history. But we took them. We didn't have a choice. What they didn't count on was that we'd fix them, rebuild them, reinvent them. I was stationed in the lunar dry docks, part of the salvage course. Our job was to take these metal coffins and make them breathe fire again. And by God, we did. We gutted their reactors and replaced them with fusion cores powered by dark matter siphons. We rewired targeting systems with neural interfaces that synced directly with pilot minds. We tore out their alien tech and replaced it with human rage and precision. And at the heart of it all was the Dreadnought, the flagship. The beast born from betrayal and engineered in silence. We didn't tell the Galactic Council we were building it. Hell, we didn't even tell our own planetary unions. Only a handful of us knew, those who'd lost too much and had nothing left to live for but revenge. It wasn't built in a shipyard. It was assembled deep under the polar ice caps of Europa, hidden from every satellite, every drone. We smuggled parts there piece by piece, sometimes through black markets, sometimes straight out of the GTC's own supply lines. We named her Judgment. She was unlike anything the universe had ever seen. Her hull wasn't reflective alloy. It was scorched obsidian laced with thermal-eating polymers. Her main cannon? A converted mining beam that could melt moons. Every part of her screamed fury. The first test fire split an asteroid in two. The second wiped a Vuraki battleship clean off the map in one hit. We didn't go public. Not yet. We waited. We bled. We pretended we were still limping around in the rusted hand-me-downs they gave us. And when the time came, we unleashed her. The Vuraki came in force. 12 carriers, 40 cruisers, swarms of interceptors. Earth's skies darkened again, just like before. The council sat back, watching, betting we'd fold. Then we brought Judgment out of Europa's ice. Every nation on Earth saw her rise. She didn't fly. She ascended like something biblical, the black silhouette of a beast forged by human hands, burning with cold fury. She broke the Vuraki line in under an hour. Their carriers exploded one by one, helpless against her velocity and power. The remaining ships scattered, but she followed. No survivors, no mercy. And when it was over, when the last Vuraki scream went silent in the void, we turned Judgment toward the Council's grand fleet orbiting Mars. They had their weapons locked, but they didn't fire. They watched as one of their junk ships, rebuilt by apes who weren't supposed to survive, hovered before them with unthinkable power. I opened the comms, spoke for all of humanity, just 5 words. "Now, you kneel to us." And they did. They knelt, but it wasn't submission. It was fear, a fear they had never tasted before. The Grand Fleet of the Galactic Council, the so-called peacekeepers of the civilized galaxy, sat motionless above Mars. Hundreds of sleek, curved ships made from alloys we hadn't even named yet, ships that had once hovered above us like gods, untouchable, eternal, but not anymore. Judgment hovered before them like a demon pulled from the darkest corner of human history. She wasn't elegant, she wasn't polished. Her hull bore scars from every battle she'd survived, and her power core thrummed like a heart filled with hatred. Inside her command deck, the atmosphere was silent. No cheering, no high fives, no celebration. Just men and women standing behind their consoles with stone faces, eyes locked on the massive fleet ahead of us, fingers poised over weapon controls. I stood at the center, hands clasped behind my back, staring through the reinforced viewport at the Council flagship, GCS Serenity. They'd named it after peace. We named ours after retribution. That difference told you everything. "Open comms to the Serenity," I said. The comm officer, a scarred tech sergeant from the Sudan Free Corps, nodded. "Channel open." The screen lit up. A smooth-skinned alien with too many eyelids and a voice like silk appeared. High Chancellor Virel, the same bastard who approved the shipment of rusted warships to Earth during the siege, the same one who smiled at our delegation, patted their heads, and called us a noble primitive species. Now, his face looked like spoiled meat, pale, trembling. "Captain Marcus Rain," he said, voice thin, forced calm. "Let's not do anything rash. The war with the Viraki is over. We stand with humanity." I took a step closer. I wanted him to see the rage in my eyes. "You never stood with us. You fed us corpses of ships and laughed behind your gilded thrones. You wanted us to die slowly, while you observed our extinction from orbit like it was some theater act. Don't pretend this was ever alliance." He hesitated. Swallowed. There were political complexities, logistical challenges. We gave you what we could at the time. "Don't lie to me," I growled. "I rebuilt those ships with my bare hands. I know what you gave us. Stripped reactors, hulls with micro-fractures, firing systems older than your empire. You didn't send help, you sent coffins." The silence from him was the first honest thing he'd given us. "Now," I said, "you will acknowledge Earth as a sovereign equal, or I will vaporize your entire fleet before they even manage to charge their shields." Virel blinked all 4 eyelids. "That is unacceptable." "The Galactic Council, I'm not negotiating, I'm warning you." I signaled to my weapons officer. "Target their power cores, all primary vessels. Don't fire yet, just let them know we're watching." A soft hum pulsed through the deck as Judgment's fire control systems locked onto the enemy fleet. We saw it happen on the sensors. Every one of their ships flinched. Dozens immediately began drifting backward, slowly, as if space had become too hot for them. Virel stared at something off-screen, likely his generals, screaming into his earpiece. Then he looked back at me, and for the first time, his voice cracked. "What do you want?" I could have asked for anything. Credits, planets, territory, revenge. But what I wanted was memory. A scar burned into the galaxy so deep they'd never forget. "I want every race in your council to remember Earth not as a charity case, but as a threat. I want your children to whisper our name at night and wonder if we'll come back. I want your diplomats to flinch every time they hear a human voice." Virel didn't respond. He didn't have to. His silence was the sound of empires bending. "Transmit our terms to your council," I said. "You have 1 hour." The screen went dark. Back in the war room, the core team was gathered. Not generals, not politicians, soldiers, engineers, survivors. "Should have hit them when we had the chance," muttered Dren, my old second from the orbital salvage rings. Half his face was metal, courtesy of the Vuraki. "We'll regret giving them time." "Maybe," I said, "but we need them scared, not dead. At least for now." Beside him sat Commander Talon, former captain of the Broken Spear, one of the junk ships we'd rebuilt early on. She'd lost her 2 sons during the siege. Burned alive in a refugee freighter shot down by friendly fire from a GTC patrol that mistook it for a Vuraki decoy. She lit a cigarette, council air regs be damned, and exhaled. "They're not used to someone saying no to them. Let 'em stew. They'll cave." "They have to," I replied, "because if they don't, Earth isn't going back to diplomacy. We're going to war." Everyone nodded. Not one person flinched. An hour later, the terms came in. Recognition of Earth as an independent sovereign power, full access to trade lanes, observer status at the Galactic Council. Reparations in resource shipments, paid over 30 years. Technology shares from all council members. It was everything we asked for, and more. But they included one line that made my blood boil. "In exchange for peace and cooperation, Earth is to dismantle the vessel known as Judgment under Council supervision." I laughed. Loud. Bitter. "They want us to dismantle her?" Talon asked, jaw tightening. "They want to kill the very thing that saved our entire goddamn species?" "They're afraid," I said, "and rightfully so." Dren slammed his fist against the table. "Let me pilot her one more time. Let me show them what fear really means." "No," I said. "We keep her. But not here." Everyone went quiet. "I'll pilot her myself. We'll take her out of system, deep space, hidden. They can think we dismantled her. Let them believe what they want. But we'll always have our weapon." "You'll be gone for years," Talon said. "I've already been gone for a lifetime," I replied. "But Judgment isn't a ship. She's a message. We don't erase that." The Council watched the official dismantling process on public broadcasts, thousands of tons of scrap floating in orbit. What they didn't know was that the real Judgment had already slipped out of system 2 days prior, running cold, buried under a stolen cargo hauler's transponder. We let them see what they needed to. Let them believe what made them feel safe. It's been 7 years now. I live inside Judgment, deep in the void, beyond mapped space. My crew is gone. I made them leave. They had lives to live, families to rebuild. I had nothing but ghosts and steel. Sometimes I stare out at the stars and wonder if they still speak of Earth in whispers. If alien children still check under their beds for the ship with black wings and a heart of fire. Good. Let them wonder. Let them never forget. Because Judgment still breathes, and if the galaxy ever forgets, she'll remind them. 7 years after the Council bent the knee, Earth had changed. I watched it all unfold from the void. Not through propaganda reels or diplomatic broadcasts, but through encrypted feeds, smuggled messages, and the personal logs of the few loyal contacts I still had inside. What I saw didn't fill me with pride. It filled me with dread. Earth hadn't become strong. It had become drunk on power. The nations that had once been united in desperation were splintering again, now clawing for their share of the Council's reparations. Earth's new high command, formed after the treaty, was bloated with suits and speechwriters. The veterans, the real warriors who'd rebuilt the warships and saved the species, pushed aside, replaced by politicians in ironed uniforms who'd never seen a body split open in zero gravity. They used my name, Judgment's name, every damn day. They called me a symbol, a guardian, a myth. But they didn't know me, and they didn't want to. Not really. The truth was simpler. They were afraid I'd come back, and they should be. I got the first warning from Talon. She was the only one who still sent me unfiltered reports, buried deep in encryption and layered with old Earth slang we knew no AI could crack. Her message was short, blunt. They're building a fleet, quietly, 10 ships, council tech, no pilots yet, but they call them fail-safes. You were right to leave. Stay dark. Fail-safes. That was their word for a kill switch. They were building weapons not to defend Earth, but to take me out if I ever returned. The irony? I'd left to protect them. I'd left because I knew what Judgment represented. Not a symbol of hope, but a loaded gun pointed at the universe's head. And now they wanted to turn that gun on me. I sat alone in the observation deck, staring at the endless black outside. Judgment's systems hummed softly around me, quiet, alive, and loyal. The ship had grown with me over the years. I'd upgraded her tech, restructured her systems. She wasn't a warship anymore. She was a fortress, a drifting kingdom with a king no one wanted anymore. But this king wasn't going to kneel. Not again. 3 weeks later, Talon went dark. No messages, no signals, nothing. She was too careful for that. Too smart. If her comms went silent, it wasn't because she got lazy. Someone had silenced her. The next day, I intercepted an off-the-books data burst meant for a council-linked relay station orbiting Saturn. It was marked Classified Operation Ghost Anchor. It contained a blueprint. A ship. No, 10 ships. All modeled after Judgment, but sleeker, faster, council-blessed and Earth-engineered, and each of them had a designated target in their mission brief. Me. I felt something that night I hadn't felt in years. Not anger, not betrayal. Grief. Grief for what humanity had become. We weren't the underdogs anymore. We were the Empire now. The ones building secret fleets, silencing our own, rewriting history to fit the comfort of those in charge. We had become what we swore to fight. And now they wanted to erase the last piece of the truth. Me. I activated Judgment's long-range nav drives and pointed her toward Earth. I wasn't going back for war, not yet. I was going back for answers. I breached Earth's outer defense grid with ease. They hadn't changed the access protocols, probably thought I'd never be back. Fools. I slipped into the shadow of Neptune's rings and let Judgment crawl forward under Cold Veil mode, invisible to most tracking systems. From there, I jacked into the old black net channels, the ones the salvage corps used during the siege, buried under decades of debris and abandoned war logs. It didn't take long to find what I was looking for. A name. General Antaro Siv, head of Earth's Fleet Modernization Program. Former trade ambassador to the Galactic Council. Paperman, clean hands, smiling face, and the man who signed off on Operation Ghost Anchor. He was the one building my replacements, and he was about to meet the real thing. Landing on Earth wasn't an option, not without drawing attention. But I didn't need to land. I knew how to pull people off the surface. The old orbital tethers were still there, hidden in the shadows of Earth's equator. Used during the war to evacuate key personnel, abandoned now, forgotten by most. But I hadn't forgotten. I jacked into the tether's uplink system and broadcast a Level 0 emergency clearance, an override code known only to the original War Council. The real one. The first one. 15 minutes later, a private diplomatic shuttle launched from New Berlin's upper command tower. Destination? Orbit. Passenger? General Sieve. He boarded the tether bay like a man walking into his personal lounge. No guards, no weapons, just confidence and arrogance, polished like his medals. When he stepped into the cold, gray docking corridor and saw me standing there, he froze. I let him stare. Let him see me, the lines in my face, the burn scars, the old dented chest plate still marked with my salvage tag. Not the legend, not the symbol, just the man he tried to erase. "You're supposed to be dead," he said. I stepped forward. "You're supposed to be loyal." He tried to play it calm, tried to give me speeches about stability and galactic trust and how Earth needed to evolve past its symbols of war. I didn't buy it. "You're scared," I told him. "You built those ships because you know the galaxy still fears judgment. And fear is something you can't control." "I built those ships," he snapped, "because the Council demanded we have a backup in case you turned." "I didn't turn. I left. I gave you peace, and you repaid me with assassination blueprints." He stared at me, jaw tight. "You're a relic, Marcus. You can't live forever in the shadow of that ship. We need a fleet that we own, not one that answers to a ghost." I looked him in the eye. "You don't own power. You just borrowed it from the ones who earned it." Then I leaned close and whispered, "And I'm taking it back." I didn't kill him. That would have made him a martyr. Instead, I left him floating in orbit with a neural marker embedded in his spine. Every time he speaks to the Council, I'll hear it. Every meeting, every lie, every plan. He's my voice on Earth now. He just doesn't know it yet. I returned to Judgment and set course for the Kuiper Belt. Away from Earth, away from the spotlight. I wasn't ready to burn everything down. Not yet, but they knew I was watching now. The Council, the fleet, the new Guardians of Peace, they saw the truth. The rusted warship they tried to forget was still alive. Still sharper than anything they'd built in their vacuum-sealed factories. And the man they tried to erase? Still breathing, still angry, still holding the trigger. The Kuiper Belt was silent. Out here, past Neptune, past the static whispers of Earth's tangled comm chatter, past the Council's surveillance grids, Judgment drifted alone in the dark. No beacons, no transponders, just a fortress ship hiding in plain space, orbiting chunks of ice and forgotten comets like a ghost among ruins. But the silence didn't last. Not anymore. It started with a soft ping, a frequency I hadn't heard in over a decade. Old Earth military band, decommissioned just before the fall of New Tokyo during the Viraki push. Only one group ever used that band after the war, the Black Stars. The Black Stars were never officially part of the Earth fleet. They were the unspoken Second Army, formed in the chaos between the siege and the treaty, operated in shadows. No uniforms, no flags, just scars and revenge and iron loyalty to each other. Half of them were war criminals. The other half? War heroes with nothing left to protect but the truth. I knew them well, I helped build them, and now they were calling me. I patched the signal through and sat back in the captain's chair as Judgment's comm system stabilized the transmission. The screen flickered, static-heavy, before the face appeared. Gray beard, cybernetic left eye, cheek split by an old plasma burn. He hadn't aged well, but warmen rarely did. "Marcus," he said, voice low, like gravel dragged across steel, took you long enough to resurface. Didn't know I was gone, I replied. You hiding out in the ice now, Harlan? Commander Harlan Cove, my former demolition chief, the kind of man who could smile while planting charges inside a council embassy and still sleep through the night. He nodded. We've been watching the Ghost Fleet, the copies, Ghost anchors fully operational, 6 out of 10 already running drills in Saturn's orbit. They're planning a live-fire test on one of the old Vuraki husks floating near Titan. Trying to send a message, I muttered. They're trying to bury you, Marcus, Harlan said. Make the people forget judgment ever existed. Rewrite the war. Rewrite you. I'm already forgotten, I replied. That's the point. Harlan leaned forward on the screen. They've gone further than you think. I raised an eyebrow. They've started rounding up anyone who worked on the original rebuild program. Salvage teams, engineers, coders, anyone connected to the Dreadnought's creation. They're disappearing one by one. My stomach tightened. Talon? I asked. Gone, not dead. Worse. Silence, off the grid. Either imprisoned or wiped out. They're scrubbing history, Marcus. Every piece of it. There it was. The final confirmation of what I'd feared since the Council first bowed. They hadn't just surrendered to us. They'd absorbed us. And now they were purging the parts they couldn't control. We want to fight, Harlan said, but we can't do it without you. Your name still means something, to the old ones, to the ones who remember the siege. I stayed quiet. He waited. You've been up there polishing your ghost ship, hoping the galaxy would stay afraid. But fear doesn't last, Marcus. Not if you disappear long enough. They stop fearing you and start replacing you. He was right. Damn him, but he was right. I hadn't built judgment to be worshipped. I'd built her to be a warning, a living scar. But scars fade when you don't show them, and now Earth was pretending the wound never existed. I nodded once. Where are you? He smirked. Lurking behind Haumea, under the debris field. Signals masked, but we can't stay long. I'll be there in 6 hours. You sure about this? I looked past the screen, toward the walls of judgment, lit by dim emergency lights and the occasional red pulse of reactor cycles. The ship didn't hum anymore. She growled. I'm done hiding, I said. 6 hours later, I dropped out of FTL near Haumea's shattered orbit path. What I saw made my blood surge. 9 ships, black as void, no markings, no transponders, but every one of them bristled with improvised weapons, jury-rigged armor, and fusion scars. Scrap monsters, born from old wrecks and haunted by rage. The Black Stars had built themselves a fleet, not to conquer, but to burn. Harlan met me in person aboard his flagship, the Burying Ground. Fitting name. Every panel inside the bridge was painted with names. Names of cities lost, ships erased, families incinerated during the siege. The ghosts were everywhere. You sure we've got the numbers for this? I asked. No, he replied flatly, but we've got the rage. Fair enough. We planned for 2 days. The objective wasn't full-scale war. Not yet. Just a strike. A reminder. We'd hit Saturn orbit, disrupt Ghost Anchor's live-fire test, broadcast a raw, unedited feat of judgment standing toe-to-toe with her copies. Let the galaxy see what an original looked like. Let Earth remember who built their freedom. The assault began at 0400 Earth Standard Time. We dropped into Saturn's shadow like thunder. Judgment led the way, her hull humming with rage, her weapons primed but cold. The Council's ghost ships spotted us within 3 seconds. They formed a defensive wedge. Sharp, precise, clean. But they hesitated. They didn't know how to react. We weren't rebels. We were the damn blueprint. I opened a broadwave channel. No encryption, no codename, just my voice. This is Captain Marcus Rain, builder of the Dreadnought. Savior of Earth. You built copies of my ship. You trained to replace me. You erased my name from the war logs. I stepped into full view of the bridge cam. Well, I'm back. The live feed caught fire. Thousands of comms lit up. Some of the Ghost Fleet pilots began to panic. 2 of them broke formation. 1 even shut down his primary weapons system. Their command channel cut through my transmission. By order of Earth's High Command, you are ordered to stand down, Marcus Rain. This is not your war anymore. I didn't reply. Judgment did. Her main cannon charged to full in 5 seconds. The entire battlefield dimmed as her reactor siphoned power like a starving god. We didn't fire, but we didn't need to. The light alone made 3 of their ships shut down. Then something happened that chilled my blood. One of the ghost ships, designation Spectre 7, moved forward. They weren't running, they were aiming. "Direct lock on us," my weapons officer growled. "They're painting the forward bridge." "Stand down," I ordered. "Wait." Spectre 7 opened fire. The beam hit Judgment's lower hull. Minimal damage. But it was enough. It was intentional. This wasn't a drill. It was a trap. I ordered full retaliation, but not lethal. Judgment fired her EMP torpedoes and pulse scatter cannons, disabling Spectre 7 instantly. The other ghost ships panicked. 1 opened fire blindly, another turned and ran. Within minutes, the battlefield descended into chaos. Harlan's fleet moved in, not to kill, but to broadcast. Every system was alive, every word, every scream, every image of Earth's own military tearing itself apart, while the original Dreadnought stood untouched, unstoppable. We let the world see, we let the Council see, and then we left, just like that, back into the void. The aftermath was nuclear. Within hours, Earth's public networks erupted. Leaked footage, soldier testimonies, and blacked-out names connected to the Ghost Anchor program. Riots in the orbital stations. Protests on Mars. And worst of all for them? Doubt, not in me, but in them. The High Command